Today, I am going to show you how to make your own custom village. I recently posted about these cherry and mangrove villages that I built in collaboration with Raven Ravel, and I thought you guys might like to know how to do this kind of stuff for yourself. So I am going to show you how to do that. And in the process, I will actually be making a brand new type of village that you guys will get to download and use for yourselves when this video comes out. Well, it's actually going to be two parts. This is part one. Now, I know a lot of you probably look at these big sprawling structures that are completely randomly generated every time you place one, and you might be thinking, where do I even start? Like, how do I even get started putting together something like this? Honestly, the best place to start is just by building the individual pieces. For example, this mangrove village was randomly generated. However, this big gazebo was built as a coherent structure, as was this building and this little pile of bamboo and every other little piece of things you see here. So the number one idea behind building a village is that you want to build the individual pieces all separate from each other. And we are going to be building a brand new village today, so let's go ahead and do that. Let's build all the pieces. Raven and I have been wanting to build a Wild West village, so that seems like a good place to start. Let's build it. And boom, look at that. That was fast. I'm such a fast builder. No, just kidding. Raven has spent the last couple weeks on this. And no, being a good builder will not be part of this tutorial. If you want to learn that, go ask Raven. Because, I mean, look, she's amazing. Now, if you're still watching my video and not one of Raven's, I assume that means you're here for all the technical Datapack stuff. And there is a lot of stuff here. We're going to have to be putting all of it into a Datapack, and that's going to take a while, but we can start small. Now, as you may have seen with the cherry and mangrove villages, and even the villages that spawn just in vanilla Minecraft, every village has what's called a town center. In the cherry village, well, this one spawned this well-looking thing right here. In this mangrove village, it was this big gazebo, and in this mangrove village, it was this gigantic tree. Each village has exactly one town center, and the village will branch out from there. So, in my opinion, a good place to start when putting together your data pack is to make sure you can actually load in the town center and get it to spawn. And that is what we will be doing today. That is the subject of episode 1. So let's start there. Now, Raven has been kind enough to build us a few possible town centers. There's this wagon camp thing, a little military fort, straight out of my home state of Texas, and this adorable little picnic area. I say we start with this one. Now, the first step in actually taking one of your built structures and saving it into your data pack is to save it to your world using a structure block. So let's just briefly go over how structure blocks work. I'll go to the operator items tab, give myself a structure block, and my favorite way to do this is actually to press F3 so you can see the crosshair turns into the XYZ axes. Now you want to go to the bottom corner of those axes, right? So they're pointing kind of in this direction. You want to go in this direction and be looking at your build from that direction, right? Now my favorite way to do this is to take the furthest block in the negative X direction, so align myself along this line, and then the furthest block in the negative Z direction, so align myself along this line as well, and then I'm going to place my structure block right here. Now I'm going to go into my structure block, put it in save mode, and because of where I placed it, I want to change the relative position from 0, 1, 0 to actually 1, 0, 1. Basically, that just makes the saved region start from where I'm standing rather than on top of the block. And the next thing I want to do is try and define the structure size. So normally I just like to take a guess. I'll say like 15 by 15 by 15. That's a 5 right there. And then if I click done, I'll see this giant bounding box appear around the build. Now it looks like I actually overshot in all 3 dimensions. So basically I can see that I overshot by 3 in the Z direction. I overshot by 1 in the X direction, and a few in the Y direction. That looks like 3, but I can guess and check later. So then I go to this, and I said I overshot by 1 in X, so I changed that to a 14. And I think I overshot by 3 in the other two, so I'm going to set them both to 12. And then when I click done, the bounding box will update. And yeah, it looks like I have successfully encompassed the entire structure. Now, it looks like Raven has actually not made a square base. She's kind of made this, like, round oval shaped ground structure. And you have to be constantly thinking about the fact that this is going to be the town center of a village. So if we just save this structure as it is right now, these little spots where I'm standing will actually always be air, and there will always be empty space right here if you save it in this format. What I want to do is make it so that rather than actually having to specify what goes right here, I let the natural terrain fill in these blocks right where I'm standing. And I do that with structure voids. Again, I'll go into the operator utilities and give myself a structure void. Then what I'm going to do is actually go back into the structure block, say show invisible blocks on, done. So now I can actually see where every little piece of air is in this build. And then what I can do is start placing structure voids. Now normally these are invisible, but if you have invisible blocks shown, they will actually show up as these little pink cubes, so you can see where they all are. As I'm placing them, I'll kind of explain how they work. Basically, structure voids specify that whenever this structure gets loaded into the world, where there was a structure void will instead be replaced with whatever block was there naturally. It'll kind of just form with the natural terrain. From a really technical standpoint, the structure voids don't even get saved as blocks in the structure blocks, so there's literally just nothing there in the saved files. So there's a handy little tip. If you want to slightly reduce your file size, make use of more structure voids, because the more voids you put in, the smaller your files will be. That's advanced stuff, you don't have to worry about that. Okay, and it looks like I have successfully put structure voids all around the base of this thing. So just to prevent my eyes from exploding, I'm going to turn off invisible blocks again. And it's saying invalid structure name. When I actually save this, I do want to come up with a name for it. You want to put it inside a namespace, because this is part of the T-Birds Worldgen Project. I will use the T-Birds namespace. It's part of the Village Wild West, so I will put that as a folder. It's a town center, so I will put that as another subfolder. And then under this folder, I will actually give it a name. So I will call it Picnic Tree, because that is what it is. And from here, all you have to do is press save, and it should give you this little message that says structure saved as, and then it gives you the name that you just put in. Now, since I have pressed save and it gave me this success message, what this means is that I can actually go into my world folder and find the file where this structure is stored. Okay, so here I am in the world folder. I will actually go to this folder called generated, and inside here you will see several namespaces. So I have saved stuff under the Minecraft namespace accidentally in the past, which is why that folder exists. But what I want to do is go to the folder with the same namespace as the namespace I just gave my structure, so it's under T-Birds. In here will always be a structures file, so you just go into that, and in here you will see a few other subfolders. So I have saved a few things under Village Mangrove, but the one I just saved this tree under was Village Wild West, so we'll go into that. Oh, and I named this wrong. Usually I say town centers with an S, but that's totally fine. I'll just go into this folder, and now you can see this here says picnictree.nbt. This is bugging me. I'm going to rename this. There we go. Now you can open this file if you want to. It's just, well, it looks like that. Now this is the file that we eventually want to be putting into our data pack. Right now it's just in the world folder. We want to actually change that. So now I'm at the point where I'm actually going to be creating my data pack. Hopefully you already are familiar with the general idea of creating a data pack, but I'm going to call this one Village Wild West. You have data, pack.mcmeta. Underneath data, you want to add your namespace. There we go. And then underneath your namespace, the first thing you want to do in this data pack is actually add a folder called structures. So underneath structures, you want to put as many subfolders as you want to organize your files and keep the naming convention consistent, stuff like that. You can really do whatever you want underneath this folder, but I am going to do this. I'm going to make a folder called Village Wild West. And then under that, I have town centers. And then in here is where I'm going to paste my file that I got earlier. Here's Picnic Tree. I'm just going to take it into my data pack. I just reloaded with that structure no longer being in the world's generated folder, but now only in the data pack. Now let's see if I can actually spawn it in using the structure block. And there we go, perfect. So there we go, that is a structure successfully added to a data pack. But it's not a full-on village style structure, it's just an NBT file and you have to spawn it manually. We have a little bit more work to do before this is an actual village. Now the first step is to change this from just being a single NBT file to actually being a structure recognized by the game that you can put down using /place rather than a structure block. And here is how we do that. Let's go back to the data pack, again under data and again under your namespace. You should be on this screen where you see structures. What we want to do here is actually add another folder called Worldgen. Go into Worldgen, and the first thing we want to add is a folder called template _pool. I'll get more into what template pools are in just a second, but the first one I'm going to create, all you need to know is that it is related to the fact that this tree is a town center. I'm going to create a file called towncenters.json. And again, this is just the name I decided to use for it. You can do whatever you want as long as you keep it consistent later. And here is what I have made the inside of that file. If you're watching this, I assume you already have at least a rudimentary understanding of how JSON notation works, so I won't be covering all that here. Basically, the root object has a single field called name, which is just the name of the template pool. And it looks like I've kind of made a mistake. It's under village _wild west /town centers, which is mirroring the naming convention that I used for my previous villages. That's an easy fix. Right now, it's just a template pool with town centers inside it. I'm going to add a folder that is village_Wild West, and then I will put the towncenters.json inside of that. And there we go. Now it mirrors village_Wild West / town centers. That name should just be the path to the file after you've already gotten under template pool. So Village Wild West, town centers. Village Wild West, town centers. There we go, perfect. Fallback is used for some really technical stuff. You generally just want to set it to empty like this. And then this elements field is where it starts to get interesting. The best way to think about template pools is that they're basically loot tables, but for structures. This elements field is a list containing objects. And each of those objects is a potential structure that can be spawned whenever this template pool is called. In a very similar fashion to how loot tables will randomly pick one or more items when they are called. Just like loot tables, they have a weight and an actual object that gets selected if that element is pulled. Because we can think of this like a loot table, it's currently essentially a loot table with only one possible pulled value. Whenever this loot table is called, well, it only has one option, and that option is this picnic tree that we just saved. Okay, that's all well and good, but now I know the burning question at the back of your mind is how do we actually make the loot table roll? And that is where we will need our next file. Back underneath the Worldgen folder, next to the template pool folder, you'll want to create a new folder called structure. Not structures plural like we did before, but this time it's only structure singular, which is confusing, but that's just the way it is. Now, underneath this structure folder, you want to create a JSON file with the name of the actual structure that you want to be able to use in /place and /locate. This one I will call village_Wild West. Now, the name of that file is very important. For example, when you're using /locate, that name will be the actual name of the structure that comes up. If you look in the Cherry Village datapack, it has a file named village_cherry. Alright, cool, so what do we put in that file? This is what the interior of the file looks like. There's kind of a lot going on here, and you can find the article on the wiki if you want a more in-depth description about what each of these things means. But I'll go over the really important ones here. Up here is the biomes that these structures can naturally spawn in when they do eventually naturally spawn. Raven and I have decided that we want to limit the Wild West village to only the wooded badlands, at least for now, but I will actually be covering more about how to change this later. A really important one is that you say type is Minecraft Jigsaw. Now, no matter what type of structure you're building, even if you're just building a single structure to be placed down, which is actually kind of what we're doing in this video, even if it doesn't use any jigsaw blocks, you still want to say jigsaw because all of the other types are like weird hard-coded things and you just don't want to mess with them. The last really important one is this start pool, and this is actually how you are going to end up spawning those NBT structures from the structure loot table like we covered earlier. You'll notice it says the namespace and then Village Wild West / town centers, which if you look back in the data pack, if you go into template pools, well, you'll see Village Wild West / town centers, which is exactly what we see here. So what this basically means is that whenever this structure gets placed down, the structure that it tries to spawn will be the structure that is rolled from this structure loot table, or template pool as it's actually called. And with just those two files, we should actually have a structure, albeit a very simple one, that we can place down using /place. Now, as a general rule of thumb, anything that goes in this Worldgen folder right here will not be reloaded if you type /reload. I'm actually going to have to restart my entire server in order for this to take effect. So I will see you once I have done that. Alright, and I'm back. I'm actually going to go out to a region a little bit further away from this to see if the data pack actually works. I'm going to say /place structure, and then the name of the structure, which is T-Birds Village Wild West. And if you remember, it's named that because of that file that I named in the data pack. If I place this down, let's see what happens. And look at that, it spawned our little tree. It sunk into the ground by a little bit, and as you can see, these corners actually were not replaced by air, and that is thanks to those structure voids I placed, if you remember that part of the video. And as of right now, this is all this structure is. I can type /place to actually get it to place down, and that's really about it. It will not spawn naturally in the world, which is what we need to fix next. All these example cherry and mangrove villages that I was showing you earlier actually were spawned with /place because this is a testing world, but if you download those data packs, you will see that these spawn naturally in the world, so I'm about to show you how to make that happen. In order to do this, we do need one more file, and it's going to be again under Worldgen, and this time under a new folder called structure underscore set. Now under this structure set folder, you're going to create another JSON file, and the name of this one is actually not important at all. It is never used, and you can name it literally whatever you like. But just to keep with naming conventions, I'm actually going to also name this one Village Wild West, and it has to be .json. And inside this folder, again, we've got a lot going on, and I'll explain the important bits. This file basically deals with the structure spawning naturally in the world and how frequently it should spawn and where it should spawn, etc., etc. Separation is the minimum space in chunks between two of the same structure, and spacing is the average space in chunks between two structures. The other thing is salt, which is literally just any random string of numbers you want. Now basically what this is, it's kind of like the Datapacks version of a seed. Having a consistent salt ensures that if you load up the same world twice with the same seed in the same datapack, the structures that get spawned will spawn in the same locations. If you change the salt, those locations will be changed. Inside structures, again, we kind of have a little bit of a loot table thing going on. Now down here is where you actually want to put the name of your structure. Now this is the same name that I used with /place earlier. And if you just add this file to your datapack, then your structure should be able to spawn naturally in the world. All right, let's take a deep breath. That was a lot. So where do we stand right now? Well, I have a datapack that takes this simple structure and spawns it randomly in the world, but only in wooded badlands biomes. Let's load up a new world and see if it works. All right, this is a brand new world, and I loaded it up with the datapack installed. So let's actually test out and see if it works. I'll do /locate structure, and then the name of my structure, T-Birds Village Wild West. And let's see if that finds anything. There we go. It says there is one almost 5,000 blocks away, so I'll go ahead and click that and teleport. And here it is. This was spawned naturally by the world. So I will call our little data pack a success so far. I mean, it's not really much of a village yet, and that is exactly what we were going to get into in episode 2, because this episode has already been really, really long. Hey, look, there's a desert village. But yeah, I feel like I have broken your brains enough for today, so I am going to go ahead and call it here. Stay tuned, episode 2 should be posted shortly, and in that episode, I will be teaching you how to actually turn this little town center into an entire village. So, my dudes, I will see you then.